Hey there, welcome back. Today we're going to be chatting about how to buy a small business without having to pay an attorney. If you have not already heard about the great wealth transfer, this is talking about the baby boomers transferring around $68 trillion in assets to millennials and Gen Z. Now, we're going to get into the legal side of this. I know there's plenty of videos, plenty of things around about how to buy a business with little to no money down, how to buy this business that can make you tons and tons of money. I'm not going to be covering that. I'm going to be covering the legal aspect on how to actually buy a business without using an attorney. This can apply to any kind of business. I'm going to give you the general things that you need to look out for in the main document for the purchase. Keep in mind, some small businesses or some businesses may have certain specifics that I will not cover here. Sometimes that does mean you might need to chat with an attorney. It doesn't mean that you need to use an attorney for the entire purchase process, but sometimes you just need a phone call with them. If you're wanting to work with an attorney for a purchase of a business, the fees will vary widely. And a lot of what it will depend on is, are you doing the due diligence or is the attorney doing the due diligence? And the due diligence is essentially checking on what the current business owner has told you, the seller, and making sure it's true. If you do the due diligence, you can pay an attorney to do the whole purchase for less than $5,000, maybe just a couple of thousand, if that. But if you are wanting the attorney to do the due diligence, you're going to be looking at a much larger bill that I can't even estimate for you. So my suggestion is to make sure that you do your due diligence on your own if you are looking to save as much money as possible. If you're like, I don't care, do it for me, then definitely hire an attorney and have them do the due diligence for you because they are the experts. Okay, so if you are purchasing a business, whether it's a small business or just a little side hustle that somebody has, when you are purchasing a business, you want to make sure that there is an understanding of you, the purchaser, you're buying the assets of the company. You don't want to buy everything from the seller because that would mean you're also buying the debts. So you want to make sure you have an asset purchase agreement. This is the number one document in a purchase of the business. The APA, the asset purchase agreement, is going to lay out the terms for the purchase. It's going to include everything that's included in the purchase and other clauses as well. There might be other documents that need to be signed in conjunction with the APA. Those could be employee agreements, they could be non-solicitation clauses, things that may need to be signed by individual people that work for the company and not just the owner selling it to the purchaser. But the APA will be signed by the seller and the purchaser. Now, the asset purchase agreement, you want to make sure, obviously, it includes everything that's included in the purchase. So I just had a phone call with a client asking, do I need to list everything that's included, or can I just say like all furniture or all this? As the attorney, I will say it depends. However, it depends on what the relationship looks like. Always err on the side of being as specific as possible. You always want it in writing. I know some people look over this and are like, oh, it's just all the furniture in this place. Okay, but what if they actually removed something and you didn't even know or you didn't realize until after? So the date that you signed the documents, everything's not there. Like, I know there's ways to get around this, but you want to make sure you're listing literally every single thing. So if you're purchasing a location, a building, if there's an ATM machine there, you want to make sure that's included. Certain number of chairs, certain number of desks, certain number, whatever you want and you agree on, that you want to make sure you list it out in the agreement. And if you have to, walk through the building and put a sticky note on everything and maybe number items. This is item number 1, item number 2. And then in the asset purchase agreement, you can list it out and say, also known as item number 1, which has the sticky note on it. Also take pictures. There's a lot of things that you can get around, because what I'm seeing with baby boomers selling their businesses, a lot of things have not been automated. And one of the clients that I was talking to, she's purchasing a business from a older gentleman. He's about 85 years old. obviously does not use any online accounting. Everything is very, very manual. And so that's a lot of fun for her going through all the due diligence. But just keep in mind that, and a lot of these older people they're not going to want to have to deal with attorneys, not going to want to have to deal with this or that. So be patient and make sure that you are as specific as possible. You want to make sure you are as specific as possible. Now, due diligence. What is due diligence? This is the most important part of the purchase process. Due diligence, as I said earlier, is you, the buyer, making sure that everything that the seller has said is true. Now, a lot of times they fudge little numbers, they fudge a little thing here or there. And so you have to make sure that you are looking at everything and making sure it all lines up. Essentially, you're doing a full audit of the business. Are all of their financial documents accurate? Are they correct? Are the sales accurate? Talk to customers. And don't, if you ask the seller, hey, can I talk to some customers or clients? And they say yes, great, you want to talk to those, but you also want to get a hold of your own customers because they're probably going to tell you to talk to the ones that they know will give them a good recommendation and know, like, hey, business is done the right way, business is done well. Always make sure that you talk to customers on your own. You find certain ones that you talk to without it being who they tell you to talk to. Contracts. What contracts are still in the name of the business? If you're taking over a lease, are there 10 years left on the lease and you don't want to be responsible for a 10-year lease? Figure out how to get around that. Or, and if it's a longer lease, one thing that I have found in the past is you can actually get a lower purchase price if you're taking over the lease. A lot of times the seller doesn't want to be on the hook for the lease, so they're willing to actually give a lower purchase price of the business. That way they're out of the lease. So that I know I wasn't here for negotiating tips, but I can't let that one go. But all contracts, make sure that they are assignable or you can assume them, which means you're just taking over their place in the contract. Because like I said, you are going to have your separate entity. You're not buying their business. So you're not going to literally go on their LLC and put your name. You're creating your own LLC, or if you don't have one yet, for a new business, you probably want to open a new LLC anyway. But that LLC is going to be purchasing from the seller. You're not going to be taking over the seller's entity. So contracts, you need to make sure they are assumable by your entity. You're probably an LLC. They can be taken over by your LLC. Intellectual property. Patents, trademarks, copyrights. Is there any intellectual property here? If it's a local business, there probably will not be a ton of intellectual property. IP comes into play a lot for online businesses, not as much so for local businesses, but absolutely something you want to check on. And if you're purchasing an online business, absolutely check on the trademarks, the copyrights. Do they have any patents? It is so critically important. I have so many videos on this with the podcast and everything, so make sure you go listen to that. Check for liens. Liens on the building. Are there liens on the seller's home for something on the business? Not that it would affect you, but you want to make sure that you're not giving the appearance of any, I was going to say wrongdoing, but you want to make sure that if there's a lien on the seller's home or anything the seller owns, who the lien holder, you want to make sure they're not going to try to come after you for whatever reason. Because if there's a piece of equipment and there's actually a lien on the piece of equipment and you didn't know, or you thought everything was fine, there could actually be a lien that you don't know about. So make sure you go and find out, are there liens on this equipment? Are there liens on this, on that? Due diligence is the most important process in purchasing a business. And again, it is making sure that what the seller is telling you is accurate. That's all due diligence is. You can do as much or as little due diligence as you want. Typically, how I operate when we're doing a purchase and what I suggest for you is to create a list of documents and everything that you want to see from the seller, give that to them, and then they'll slowly give it to you, and then you investigate from there. So once you have completed your due diligence, then you want to complete the asset purchase agreement. This is the big document that you're going to sign. It's going to indicate everything that's being sold, everything that you, the buyer, are acquiring. A lot of other terms like where's, the jurisdiction if something goes wrong. Are they going to be staying on to help with a transition period? All the details. All of that goes in the asset purchase agreement. You can draft this on your own. You do not need to have an attorney. It is not illegal if you draft it yourself. It might be a good idea to have an attorney look at it if it's a bigger purchase price, especially if it is a bigger purchase. You probably do want to have an attorney draft it anyway, but I understand maybe balling on a budget. So make sure that you are doing as much as you can with the little budget that you do have. All right. If you need help, you know where to find me. Make sure to follow, subscribe, share it with your friends that are purchasing a business, and let me know if you have questions and if you want any other topics covered. I'll see y'all next time.